After zooming through space for nearly 7 months, Perseverance landed on Mars on February 18th. In the final minutes before landing, NASA control showed animations of the rover descending through the Martian atmosphere, deploying its parachute, and then finally touching down. We even got to see the very first still images taken by Perseverance on the Martian surface. It took some time for video to get beamed back from Mars, but now we've been given a front row seat to see how it all went down, thanks to cameras packed on board. There are actually 23 cameras on board the Perseverance rover. They're designed to do everything from helping with navigation to detecting hazards. There's even a cache cam just to give us a view of rock samples collected from the planet's surface. But among all that hardware, NASA packed in 6 cameras dedicated to recording full-colour video of the entry, descent and landing from every possible angle. There were cameras mounted on the protective back shell of the spacecraft, which gave us a view of the parachute during entry. Then there was a camera mounted on the descent stage looking down onto the rover, as well as a camera on the rover looking back up to the descent stage as they parted ways. Finally, a camera mounted on the bottom of the rover captured footage looking down on Mars as the rover landed. All these cameras showed us the entry, descent and landing in amazing detail, from the spacecraft's heat shield dropping away down to the dust blowing on the surface of Mars as the rover descended, and it was one hell of a ride. NASA calls the 7 minutes it takes to go through the atmosphere and land on Mars the 7 minutes of terror. Why such a terrifying name? Well, that entry, descent and landing is where a lot of things can go wrong. Think of it this way. After taking off, Perseverance was just zooming through the vacuum of space, safe in its protective aeroshell. But to land on Mars, it has to slow down, fast. When Perseverance reached the Martian atmosphere, it was travelling at about 20,000 kilometres or 12,500 miles an hour. When it was about 12 kilometres above the surface of Mars, that's when we got confirmation that Perseverance had deployed its massive 70-foot wide parachute. And thanks to cameras built on the spacecraft, we got to see it happen. Once the parachute started slowing things more rapidly, the heat shield separated, exposing cameras on the rover itself, meaning the rover could see Mars for the first time. And that's when things got really clever. Perseverance's landing site, Jezero Crater, is about 28 miles wide and full of rocky boulders and steep cliffs. NASA couldn't guide the rover from here on Earth. The communication delay would be too long. So the spacecraft used something called terrain relative navigation to capture images of the Martian surface and compare them to maps of Jezero Crater to find the best place to land. In the final seconds before touchdown, when Perseverance was about 20 metres above the surface, it did what's known as the sky crane manoeuvre, where the rover itself was lowered down from the descent stage on a set of cables, getting its legs and wheels ready to land. And then boom, touchdown. Perseverance had landed.
Welcome, it is Verdict with Senator Ted Cruz, Ben Ferguson with you, and today is part 2 of our exclusive conversation with Elon Musk, the entrepreneur and innovator who is transforming industries and is dismantling government waste, fraud, and abuse with Doge. Musk's relentless pursuit of technology and space exploration continues to capture the world's imagination. In this episode, we unravel the thoughts and aspirations of a man who defies conventional boundaries, pushing humanity towards new horizons. So join us in the White House as we continue to explore the riveting journey of Elon Musk, a modern-day pioneer whose revolutionary ideas are set to redefine tomorrow.
Let me start with a question you know a lot about. What year does man first set foot on Mars?
I think the soonest would be 29.
29.
Yes.
Let me start with a question you know a lot about. What year does man first set foot on Mars?
I think the soonest would be 29.
29.
Yes.
Let me start with a question you know a lot about. What year does man first set foot on Mars?
I think the soonest would be 29.
29.
Yes. And I don't think it's more than 2 to 4 years beyond that.
And that's not an unmanned. That's a human being putting his foot on the surface.
Yes, best case would be 29.
And what do you put the odds of finding either alien life or evidence of alien life?
I don't think we're going to find aliens.
Okay. But do we find ruins? Do we find remnants?
We may find the ruins of a long-dead alien civilization. That's possible. And we may find subterranean microbial life. That's possible.
All right. If man lands on Mars in 29, how soon after that do you land on Mars?
It remains to be seen. I'm not sure. The important thing is that we build a self-sustaining city on Mars as quickly as possible. The key threshold is when that city can continue to grow, continue to prosper, even when the supply ships from Earth stop coming. At that point, even if something would happen on Earth, it might not be World War III, but it might be that
a bad virus.
Yeah, it might not be anything. What I was saying is, it's like say civilization could die with a bang or a whimper. It may be that civilization dies with a whimper rather than a bang, and simply loses the ability to send ships to Mars. But so you obviously need Mars to become self-sustaining and be able to grow by itself before the resupply ships from Earth stop coming. That is the critical civilizational threshold beyond which the probable lifespan of civilization is much greater.
And how close are we technologically to be able to do that, to have a self-sustaining settlement on the surface of Mars?
I think it can be done in 20 years.
But it would take 20 years. So we're not, in 29, we're not there. What are we missing?
Well,
what are the big technologies we don't have?
A few people running around the surface in a hostile environment is not going to make it self-sustaining. Right. So you're going to need on the order of 1 million people, maybe 1 million tons of cargo.
So, but you think we could have 1 million people on Mars in 20 years?
Yes.
And what's the technology we're missing right now? When you think about 1 million people on Mars, do we have the ability to get water, to get food, to keep them safe? I mean, what do we need to make that happen?
Well, you need to recreate the entire base of industry of Earth. So, we're here at the top of a massive pyramid of industry that starts with mining a vast array of materials, those materials going through hundreds of steps of refinement. We grow food, obviously. We grow trees. We make things out of the trees. You've got to build all that on Mars. And Mars is a hostile environment. It's it sometimes gets above zero on a warm summer day near the equator on Mars. Really, it's quite cold.
And how do you prep for that?
Well, in the beginning on Mars, you have to have a life support habitation module.
Right.
Like you can't just live outdoors. You can't breathe the air.